Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Henford and Bagley, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack Sims 4 Cottage Living, and I'm going to be building a French Chateau using custom content. So first things first, I highly recommend that you go grab yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, hot chocolate, water, whatever your preferences are, just something to keep you hydrated. And also I would probably grab a snack as well, because this video is quite a big one, but this week I finally sat down and built a French Chateau using custom content. Now pretty much ever since Felix Andre came out with the Chateau set, I've just been so desperately wanting to sit down and just do an absolutely mammoth build using the whole entire CC set itself, alongside with my whole other mods folder, all the other pieces of CC that I've collected over the years, and just basically put it into one. And this week I finally did it, and this is going to be a really big statement to make. But honestly, I think this is my new favourite build that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of houses. I've built a lot of stuff in this game. But this house, I'm just so absolutely in love with. Like every single little tiny centimetre of this build, I'm just, yeah, utterly obsessed with it. And so I really hope you like it as well. Even if you just like it like 5% of the amount that I do, then that is good enough for me, because I'm just obsessed. And so yeah, anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So the house itself ends up having 4 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, and it's built on a 50 by 40 lot. Now where I'm building in the world of Henford and Bagley, if you're not recognising this lot, it's originally meant to be a park when you go into a brand new save file, which the park itself off memory is quite boring. Like it's got a few trees and I think maybe a park bench, probably a barbecue, no, in the Sims team, but this lot, when you go into a brand new save file, is quite boring. And when I came round to figuring out where I was going to build this, I wanted to build this house surrounded by all these beautiful trees, beautiful landscape. I did almost build it on a 64 by 64 lot, but the thing is, the 64 by 64 lot that we have in the world of Henford and Bagley doesn't really have that much foliage going around it. It's pretty much just in the middle of a field. And so I thought, I'm going to build it here. That way as well, we have like this little stream next to the lot. We have a beautiful waterfall in the distance. It's the most perfect lot to build this French Chateau on. But in terms of the way that I decorate the bedrooms in this house, I decided to decorate one for a set of parents, one for a teenager, one for a kid, and then also one for a butler. Now, when it came around to doing this build, I just couldn't help myself but think about a storyline when I was building it, because this build took me a very long time. I had around about 15 hours of recorded footage for just this build alone, and that is not including the times that I stopped the camera and I was staring at it thinking, what can I put here? Or, just like thinking time. Just recorded footage, I had a lot of it. And so naturally, when I build and I do these really big things, I just think of a storyline and then I kind of decorate towards a storyline. And so I'm really excited to talk about the storyline in a minute. But in terms of what is on the inside this house, we have like the standard stuff, kitchen, lounge room. We have a breakfast room just off the kitchen, as well as like a fancy dining room. And then one of my favourite features of the build, we have a hidden library behind a hidden bookcase door, which does kind of go hand in hand with the idea of the family that I envision living here, and the reason why they've got like this little, it's almost like a safe room. I was thinking I could actually make it into a safe room, like in gameplay, if I was you and I was playing with this household, I would probably make into some sort of like, yeah, security safe room or something. But I've had these CC hidden bookcase doors in my game pretty much ever since we had the Chateau set, because that's where they're from, and I've just been really wanting to use them in a build, and this house, perfect opportunity. And so there is this hallway. It looks like a regular hallway, but there's not. There's actually a bookcase and it's got a little hidden door, and you go in there and it's filled with all this beautiful artwork and these really tall bookcases and just loads of stuff, and it was really fun. But as well as that, in this house there also ends up being a home office, which kind of doubles up to be like a whiskey or scotch drinking room. That's more so what I was thinking when I was decorating it. Again, I was thinking about the storyline for the Sims that live in this house. I'm thinking they're very prestigious. They've got a lot of money. They often have people come over for like fancy dinner parties. But then after the dinner parties stopped, I was thinking maybe like the gentlemen will go into this like fancy home office and drink scotch and talk business and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, there is kind of like a scotch drinking room, whiskey drinking room, which kind of doubles up to be somewhere where your Sims can use the computer. area. And then on the outside of this build, on the front portion, there ends up being a little pond, which I end up placing down this little paddle boat, and I put down like an umbrella and a hat in it. And then you'll see as well, I placed down some swans into the pond, and you'll be able to see the swans in this video. I quickly just popped into gameplay so I could kind of get my bearings of where the swans would swim and make sure that they don't go into the paddle boat. But yeah, I placed down this really beautiful paddle boat at the front, and then I also put some flowers in there, like a bouquet of what I was thinking looks like hydrangeas or something. It's just so pretty. Like, it's just so pretty, and it's just so French, and it's just so perfect. I just love it so much. But then also in the front portion, we have some sort of like overgrown ivy gazebo. Also doubles up to be like a little seating area. And then in the back garden, the first thing, which is probably one of my favourite areas of the build, but then again, saying that, I can't choose, but it is up there. I end up making a greenhouse, but it's not a regular greenhouse. It doubles up to be a multi-functioning greenhouse with so many different things for your Sims to do. So your Sims can do gardening. It's kind of like the old main purpose of having a greenhouse. But then also in there, your Sims can do flower arranging. There is a tea drinking station. There also ends up being a grand piano with all this like ivy and flowers growing up here. Also try to make it into somewhat of an art studio as well. The greenhouse itself is just so beautiful. I've recently downloaded some new ivy and then also flower decals to the wall, and I put them onto all of the walls in the greenhouse, and it's just so overgrown and it's just so pretty, and I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. But also on the outside, there ends up being multiple different sections with really fancy hedges. I don't know where this idea in my head came from, but whenever I personally think of a French chateau myself, first thing that my mind goes to is really fancy house, lots of fancy hedges, and like well trimmed, well manicured kind of garden. And so we have two different plots with all these like fancy, it's custom content like hedges, and I kind of like put them together to make somewhat like a maze looking thing. But then we also have a swimming pool, we have some sun lounges. We also end up having a barbecue area, which you wouldn't think a house like this would make sense to have a barbecue area, because a barbecue is a little bit like standard suburban family home kind of thing, but it works because I've got some custom content that kind of work for the style that I'm building in. And then yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of the back garden. There is also like little bits here and there. On the upstairs balcony, I end up placing down an art easel. There is also one in the greenhouse, like I said, but I'm just thinking multiple different locations to paint. Maybe you're not inspired in the greenhouse, go upstairs to the upstairs balcony. You've got beautiful views of the world of Henford and Bagley, and that waterfall that I'm talking about is just off the left-hand side. Pretty much, you know when you get your Sims to paint from reference, your Sims will be able to paint the waterfall in the distance. It's just really pretty. And then we also have like a bar cart up there. We also have like a seating area downstairs and some sofas and just loads of different little bits and bobs, loads of different little knickknacks. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for like the general overview of the main things in this house. But moving over and talking about what I'm doing right now, as you can see, the whole shell of the house, pretty much the whole structure, has already been built, and I'm currently just coming in and doing the landscaping. Now, for this video, and like all of my other custom content builds, I'm going to try my absolute hardest to try and point out where things are from in terms of the CC creator, the CC pack. I'm going to try and do my best just to point it out, just out of, you might want to know, like if I was you, I might want to know where a certain thing is from, and so I'm going to try and do my best. If I do miss anything and you want to know where it's from, feel free to leave me a comment and I will do my best to try and find it for you. I've got quite good knowledge at this point of my CC folder, but then saying that, actually, something really exciting happened recently. Well, not exciting for my PC, bless her, but I've recently went on a CC shopping spree and downloaded a ton of new content, which just made this build just so much more fun because I had so much new stuff to play around with, and this is my first time basically playing around with it and just seeing what I've now got in my game. And yeah, I've recently went on a CC shopping spree, and so I've got some new creators that I'm using custom content for that I've never even discovered until recently, and so it was just really exciting. But yeah, if you do want to know where something in particular is from and I just maybe didn't mention it, feel free to leave me a comment and I'll run into my game and I'll find out for you. Also, something to mention, if I say something's from a certain creator, I'm going to be double checking with myself, and if I say something, for example, is from one creator or it's from one CC pack and it's wrong, I'll put a little bit of text on the screen for you. I just don't want to give you the wrong information, and so don't worry if I tell you something's from somewhere. Promise you that it's going to be accurate, it's going to be correct. But yeah, if you see something that you like and I didn't mention it, feel free to ask me. But in terms of all the different build items so far in this house, the windows, the doors, them fancy thing that kind of like frame the windows, and then also them fancy things that kind of like wrap around the wall, as well as them little bump outs in the roof, all from the Chateau set by Felix Andre. I think also the little balcony pieces, you see where I've got like a little metal fence kind of like covering some of the windows, they are also by Felix Andre. I use a lot of the Chateau set on the exterior as well as the interior in this house because, I mean, it was only right, wasn't it? I'm building a French Chateau and there's a French Chateau CC set, but also them little fancy stair end pieces. You see, if you look at the staircase on both the left hand side and the right hand side, they kind of like curve out. Absolutely beautiful. I really wish we had something like that in the actual game itself, but that is also by Felix Andre. I'm pretty sure the only thing in terms of what is on the actual house itself, in terms of like build and buy items, that is not by Felix is them little flower decal window boxes. They are by Plum Bob Tea Society. I feel like whenever I do any sort of CC build, I always use them, but I just can't help myself. They're just really pretty and they come in some really lovely colours. But as well as that, on the front portion of this build, as you can see, I just popped down a little fountain in the middle. The one that I end up using is actually from Realm of Magic. It's one of the very few pieces that I use in this build that is actually paid content, because normally whenever I do my CC build, I try and use just strictly CC and not have to go into, you know, use something from Cottage Living or use something from Get to Work or something. Whenever I do CC builds, I try and make it strictly CC, because to me, I'm thinking, if you're someone that maybe it doesn't have a lot of packs, maybe you don't really have that many DLCs, custom content really comes in clutch, because a lot of it you can just have the base game, and then with custom content it's like a whole new game. And so whenever I do CC builds, I try and only use CC, but I just could not find a big enough fountain, to be honest. I spent an embarrassing amount of time on Google trying to find a custom content fountain to put in the front portion of this house. I did download one, but it just wasn't showing up in my game. And so in the end I thought, you know what, I was going to use the Realm of Magic one. I like it anyway. And so, yeah, I just popped that on the front centerpiece of the driveway, and then next to it I just placed down a little car. So fairly recently I discovered that we have CC cars available to us to download in the game, which if you are familiar with my channel you might have seen by now. I like to place down a little car into my driveways just because I like to try and make my builds as realistic as I can, and to me having a car in a driveway, if there is a driveway, it just makes perfect sense. But yeah, I recently downloaded some CC cars, and the one that I've used is meant to be an Aston Martin something. It's Aston Martin, then a load of different letters and I think a number as well. I'm not a car person, I don't really know the ins and outs, but it looks really nice and it goes really well at the front of the build, and so I just plopped that down. I also wanted to point it out because if you was to look in either the description box and you see the price of this house, or you want to download it off the gallery and you can see the price of the house, you might be thinking, Jesus, how is this so expensive? Because this house, the end result, ends up being 3.9 million simoleons, which that is the most expensive house I think I've ever built before. But basically the car itself, it's 3 million. Like, it's 3 million quid, that car. But then when I was in gameplay and I was like playtesting this house, make sure it was usable, I wanted to see how much the house would be if I removed the car, which once I deleted the car, it was like 2.4 million. Basically, it ended up working out that this house, even without the car, ends up being 1.5 million simoleons. I really hope your Sims have got a good banking app or something, because they're going to need a lot of money if they want to live here. But it's just also beautiful, and all the CC that I've got, granted, it's expensive for your Sims to buy, but I feel like the payoff is just absolutely worth it. But either way, as you can see, I'm just finishing up this front section over here. As you would have seen, I just made that little paddle boat with this like bouquet of hydrangeas in it, and then I also plopped down this little summer hat with a bow, which is just so beautiful. Honestly, I could like combust with how sweet it is. And then I also put down this little umbrella as well, and then you'll see in just a second I'm gonna pop into gameplay. You don't see much of going into gameplay, but it kind of like fades into the gameplay, and you can see the swans in the pond, and the swans just look just so absolutely beautiful and just so perfect for this French chateau. You see the little like tiles that I've got in the pond itself. I've got a variation of I think two. I've got a swan one and then a mosquito one. Basically, when you're building, if you want to have like crocodiles or fish or I don't know, mosquitoes or whatever you want, you basically place these down, and then in gameplay them little tiles disappear, and then you can actually see the creatures that it's meant to be. You can see now that I've got these beautiful swans, and they just look so just so gorgeous. I'm so happy that I went with swans, because at one point I was thinking just put a duck in there, but then I remembered that we've actually got swans as well as crocodiles and stuff, but I didn't put a crocodile in there. I just thought swans, and then also dragonflies as well. So yeah, in gameplay it's just so beautiful because we have these swans just swimming about in their little lake, and you can see their little feet like patting about, and then we have these dragonflies kind of like flowing over the water and going over the little boat, and it's just so pretty. I actually can't even contain myself of how nice it looks. But yeah, that's in the little front portion. You would have also just seen I placed down a quite rustic gazebo that has some ivy around it. So this is one of my new sparkly pieces of custom content that I recently downloaded, and this is from a creator that I've literally just discovered. Their name is Joyce is Fox. I downloaded a lot of stuff from them, like a lot. Pretty much everything that I've ever made I'm pretty sure I downloaded, but I recently downloaded it, knew that I needed to use it in this build in particular because the gazebo itself, I'm pretty sure off memory, comes in the world of Henford and Bagley where I'm building, but I'm not sure if you're required to have the Cottage Living expansion pack or not to download it, because normally, for example, if I use custom content that might be like a washing machine or a tumble dryer, you would have to have the laundry day stuff pack to make it work. But where it's a decoration, you might be able to get away with it if you've just got the base game, because there's no like interactions with the object, it's just purely decoration. But either way, I've got some custom content of it which actually makes it so your Sims can go in that gazebo, like your Sims can actually physically go in there. I placed down a little table and some chairs, and then also a little bench as well, and I just thought it was really beautiful. And also it comes with some separated ivy that you can pair with the gazebo, so if you want to, you could have a different coloured gazebo and then also change the flower colours so it's a little bit more personalised. It's just absolutely beautiful, and so I thought I'll plop that down next to the little pond with the swans in. But now, as you can see, I've now moved over into the back garden. So the back garden landscaping ends up being quite different to the front garden in a sense of it's a lot more manicured in comparison to the front garden, because the front garden I love the way that I landscaped it, but for the back garden I wanted to include loads of different hedges and loads of different like trimmed foliage and just make it look fancy. We're building a chateau. These Sims, they've got plenty of money, they've got plenty of gardeners to keep up with this garden, and so I use a lot of this stuff which is from the Pavillon collection by Cibulet. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's by Cibulet. Again, I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly as well, but they are a custom content creator which I recently downloaded a ton more of their stuff. I'd previously been using this CC creator in some of my other builds, like my CC builds, but I recently revisited their website, had a bit of a shopping spree. Also, by the way, I feel like I should mention this. I feel like I say this in every single CC video, but whenever I do CC builds, I don't just rely on you to remember what I'm saying and where it's from and go and run and go and get it yourself. I'm going to be linking absolutely everything you're going to see in this video in the description box down below via a Google Doc. Do you just want to give a formal apology right now to your computer, because the Google Doc link itself, it is 5 pages long, double column spaced CC. It's just basically this Google Doc link just filled with all this good stuff, all these different goodies from all these different CC creators. Some of them I've used before and they are ones that I've been using for donkey's years at this point, but then I've recently discovered new creators and I've got these new goodies in my game, and it's just, the Google Doc link is hefty, and I just want to say sorry to your computer because there's a lot of good content in there. Of course, you don't have to download it if you don't want to, but if you are fancying a bit of a CC shopping spree, then yeah, the Google Doc link might be useful to you. But also on the Google Doc link, I did do it so it is a colour coordinated key system, which I normally do anyway, which I was actually going to ask you, do you want me to carry on doing that? Because I basically do it, so with my CC builds, I do them every few months or so, and I just don't want to consistently still link you the same CC over and over again. And so what I'll do is when I do a CC build, I'll basically highlight the stuff that I'd previously linked in the video before the one that you're watching, and then that way, if you already previously downloaded it, you don't have to re-download it. Just saves your PC, bless it, because downloading custom content sometimes can be a lot for our little computers, and so I try and do a colour coordinated system and try and highlight what I've previously linked to you before. But yeah, I just don't know if I should carry on doing it, because basically the thought that I had the other day is, what about some people might find it hard having the highlighted system and just would rather no highlight, no key, colour coordinated organisation? Would you rather me just tell you the names of it and not highlight it, or do you like the highlighted bit? I just think the highlighted bit is easy, but I'm just thinking if you're someone that maybe hasn't got, maybe if you say for example, if you're someone that has not the best vision and you find it really hard to read stuff that has been highlighted, I just want to make it as easy as possible for you. And so yeah, let me know if you want me to carry on doing the highlighted key system. But anyway, moving over from that and getting on and talking about what I'm doing right now. As you can see, I just finished up the swimming pool, popped down some little sun lounges and some brollies next to them. They are both from the same CC set and they're by Felix Andre. I just can't remember off memory what CC set in particular that they are from. But in terms of the fence and then also these little archways that are going around this build, also by Ciboulette. Like I said, I recently just revisited their website, went on a bit of a CC shopping spree, and they have got so much good stuff, so much good content. Off memory, I believe it's from the Loft collection, the fence that kind of wraps around the whole entire lot, and then also that little archway that I kind of like moved objects into the fence. You would think that's actually just like a fence post, or like you would think that's a gate, but it's not. It's actually just a normal archway which you can put on either the exterior or the interiors of your builds, but it's just in the same set as what the fence posts are, so that you can kind of like move objects in and make it look like one whole item. But as well as that, in this back garden we have them fancy hedges with all these different like circular hedges and triangular ones and square ones. And what I basically did, if you're confused how they're looking right now, I knew that I wanted to have more than one of them because I just wanted it to be very grand in this back garden, and the screenshots as well of the back garden, not even just the back garden, the whole entire house, but especially the back garden in this little section over here where this greenhouse ends up being. They're just so beautiful. Probably some of the best screenshots I've ever taken in my whole entire life. Like, I'm just absolutely obsessed with them. But I knew coming into this back garden that I wanted to have multiple different hedged areas, and I thought, why would I build the same thing twice? Just build one of them and then make it into a room and then just copy it over. It's time efficient. I mean, to be honest, it would have only taken me about 30 seconds to replicate it, but I might as well have. I didn't want the hedges to be odd. I wanted them to be even, and so yeah, if you're seeing the hedge on the right hand side at the minute and it's got some sort of weird flooring underneath it, don't worry, I ended up deleting it. It was just so I could basically copy and paste it over onto this side of the build. But currently over here, as you can see, I'm just figuring out the landscaping, what I'm going to basically place down in front of this greenhouse. Now, for the greenhouse itself, I'm using some custom content greenhouse roof pieces, and the ones that I'm using are by Brazen Lotus, I believe is how you say their name. Beautiful, stunning, gorgeous, can't even think of the amount of nice words to describe these roof pieces, and they function like an actual greenhouse. So you know in game, when you would just build a roof and then put a glass tile onto it so then it becomes a greenhouse, it's the exact same with these. As soon as you plonk them onto a room, then underneath it the floor disappears and you've got a massive skylight basically. But yeah, they're from Brazen Lotus. I have used them before in a previous CC build, which was actually again built in the world of Henford and Bagley. I think that one was called Generations Family Cottage, I think, off memory, which I've noticed I do love a CC build in the world of Henford and Bagley, but I can't help it, I love this build. Maybe it's because it's inspired off Britain or like England, more so like the Cotswolds, which it's not where I live, but I just think it's really beautiful. But yeah, I have previously used them before, but again, it's just going to be in the Google Doc link. And outside of it, I wanted it to make it look like it's not like floor to ceiling glass windows. Have you seen them fancy greenhouses where it's not completely like windows and glass? There's some sort of like detailing on the bottom portion of where the windows are. I thought, well, instead of trying to figure out what to place down as some sort of detail, why don't I just put some sort of like red brick? Then that way you still get the same idea of it's not floor to ceiling windows, but you still got plenty of daylight going into the greenhouse. But yeah, the brick wallpaper that I use is by Felix Andre, and then currently, as you can see, I'm just moving over and just figuring out this little back downstairs patio area. Now, I did decide to cut out the top balcony area only because when I was recording, I didn't have a Scooby at first, what I was going to put up there. I ended up just spinning the camera around a lot, zooming out a lot to see how it looked, and it was all faff, and so I did decide to cut it out. But you'll kind of see it in the video anyway as I kind of like spin around, and then also in the screenshots. But on the downstairs portion, I just thought it would be really nice to have a nice little seating area, also have another little like breakfast table area. There is plenty of dining tables in this house, but I'm thinking the Sims, maybe they often have parties, they often have Sims come over, they often like to change the location of where they have their breakfast. You know, when they're having their croissants and their cup of tea in the morning, one day they might want to sit inside in the formal breakfast room, another day they might want to sit outside on the patio, and so I end up making multiple different seating areas. But it's, you never go wrong with a table and a set of chairs. But on the outside dining table, I end up placing down some little teacups, some sort of like newspaper looking thing. I also end up placing down a little toast holder, which the toast holder is by Piero Sim, and it's from the Unfold collection. I have previously spoken my love for this one particular little toast holder from Piro Sim, which I know might sound so silly, but I just absolutely love it. And it's just one of them small little details which it's just so realistic. I mean, me personally, I've never had a toast holder. I feel like that's giving hotel. But I feel like for Sims, they've got a lot of money. It just makes perfect sense. Also, I will speak about the storyline for the Sims that live in this house shortly. I just want to tell you where everything's from, and when I'm doing like always or something, we'll chat about it. But yeah, the toast holder itself, it's like the Sims team. No offense, babe, but I don't think you would ever include or even think to include a little toast holder into the clutter in the game. But CC creators, they play the game and they just know what we want and we know what we want to decorate with, and it's just so. Imagine a hotel with that. I need to do that actually. Maybe one day I'll build a hotel. Maybe we'll get a hotel pack one day. I would, quite frankly, really enjoy myself if I could build a hotel and make it so it's a fully functioning hotel like the Sims 3 hotels were. I would absolutely love that, but yeah, hopefully we can get a hotel pack one day. I know a lot of people do want that, and I am also one of them. I want a few different things though, still currently in the game. One of them being fairies, second one being bands. Band is like my top thing, to be honest. If you've been watching me for a little while, you've probably heard me go on about it. But I would just love a drum kit. That's just to be fair. Don't even give me a kit with a drum kit in it, and I'll be happy, just because I want to create little band rooms for teenagers and stuff, and I just feel like it'd be so cool. But that is besides the point. Completely alternate subject to what we're doing right now. Moving over, as you can see, I have now moved over into the greenhouse. So in here I just plopped down some planters, and then you can see that I've just now started placing down some ivy onto the walls. So I end up using a variation of I think 4 different ivy collections, or like ivy wall decals from different creators in this one greenhouse alone. So to start off, the ivy that's kind of going around the door to enter the greenhouse, that is by Musk, and it is from, it's kind of like Discover University looking ivy to me. You know, Discover University expansion pack? In the live edit menu, we've got this ivy. I am one to use it all the time, but it kind of looks like an extension of that. Love that. Appreciate it so much. But then secondly, you see the thicker looking ivy that looks really chunky and just, you look like you could kind of like bite it, if you know what I mean. That is by Ciblier, and that is the Vienna, I believe is how you pronounce it. Ivy. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce anything incorrectly. I'm just not the best at pronunciations. I just really struggle with saying words I'm not too familiar with. Like, if I don't say it in my day-to-day language, I don't know how to pronounce it, and so I just kind of wing it. Hopefully that's how you pronounce it. But then we also have 2 different variations of rose ivy. Now, you see the rose ivy that looks like it's got some thicker ivy behind it, so like some thicker leaves. That is by Joyce is Fox. And then I've got some little smaller clumps of ivy, kind of like wrapping around the door, and that is from Pierre Sim from the Domain collection. The CC packs themselves, so like the CC collections of different ivy and roses, stand alone beautifully by themselves, but then I feel like also clumped together in this kind of like collection of all them different like merging. It's just so beautiful, and it just ends up making this greenhouse just so old and overgrown, and it's just, I am absolutely in love with this greenhouse. Like I said, it's part greenhouse, part like painting studio, music room, tea drinking room. It's not just somewhere where your Sims can come in and garden. They can do that, but then they can also do some painting in the corner, and I ended up placing down like a little apron, and I tried to hang it off what looks to be kind of like the opening for the window. You'll see it in a second. Then I also placed down some clutter of paintbrushes on this little table, and then some drawings. Also ended up placing down 2 different clusters of canvases, one completely empty for what I imagine your Sim is going to eventually paint on, but then also some canvases that have previously been drawn on, and then the piano as well. Oh yeah, the piano. That is from Joyce's Fox, and I believe it's in the same collection where them rose ivies are from, because it's the exact same rose detail on the piano. To me, I'm just thinking maybe it got a bit out of hand in the greenhouse. People didn't keep up with like maintaining the ivy to make sure it doesn't go onto anything, but maybe the ivy started to like climb its way up the piano, and it's now sitting on like the edge of it, and like the shelf of the piano has these beautiful pink roses. It's so pretty. Also, something that I wanted to point out, when I was playtesting this house, my Sim, she playtested the piano, birds swam. Birds don't do, actually no, birds do swim. Don't know why I said swam, but birds flew around her when she was playing the piano. Maybe it's because if you actually think about it, when you swim and then if you could fly, it's basically the same motion, but you just, one's in the water and one's in the air. But yeah, birds were flying around her when she was playing the piano. And in my current household that I'm playing with right now, the dad of the household, he's a musician, like really fancy, really famous, and he is level 10 of the piano skill. He's also level 10 in like guitar and singing pretty much every single musical instrument that we've got in the game. He's level 10. I've been playing with them for literally like forever now, but I've never seen him have little birds flying around him when he plays the piano in the front room. I don't know if the birds are maybe tied to that object or something, but I just thought I'd mention it because it is just so fitting for this greenhouse to have these beautiful little birds, flying around your Sims when they're playing the piano. But either way, as you can see, I'm just basically coming into the greenhouse and basically just finishing up now. I did decide to add some spandrels onto the roof piece just because I wanted to have some hanging lights, but I didn't want to plop them down and then basically be floating in the ceiling because, you know, it's a glass roof where they're going to be hanging from. Where's the electricity going to be coming from? And so I decided to put in some spandrels and then hang the ceiling lights off the spandrels. That way that it was still nicely lit up. I then just revisited the back garden basically and just added in a final few pairs of lights just so the whole entire build is nicely lit up of an evening. And now, as you can see, I've now moved over into the interior. So starting off by this very grand entrance hallway, I knew coming into this build I needed to make somewhat of a fancy staircase. I needed to use them little like end pieces of the staircases where they like flare out because they're just so beautiful. They're the same ones that I use in the exterior as well, but I knew this build, it couldn't just have like a single tile bog standard staircase. Like, it needed to be fancy. We're building a chateau, like it needs to be quite extravagant. And so in this hallway, the way that I did the staircase, the actual staircase itself, the 3 tile long one, that is on a platform. I then just connected 2 little stairs to the ends of the platform, and that's how I have this really grand entrance. I then just made somewhat of like a custom fence, kind of like wrapping around the front portion of the platform and then also kind of going down the stairs. They're the same ones that I again use in the exterior. They are by the Chateau set by Felix Andre, and it just looks so grand, it just looks so beautiful, and it's so perfect and fitting for a chateau. But on the interior in the hallway, I wanted it to be very grand, very fancy, because I'm thinking the Sims that live here, they have got so much money. I'm personally thinking the Sims family that live in this house, they come from old money, you know, generational wealth. Their ancestors, big money makers, and it's just trickled down into this family. And something that I was thinking of when I was thinking of the family that could live here is I was thinking that the family consists of a mum, a dad, a teenage girl, and then a kid as well who's also a little girl. And then I was thinking a butler also lives in this house. Now the idea that I had was, well, what about if you make it so the legacy of this family actually comes from the wife's family? You know, Jeffrey and Lance Landgrab, the ones that live in Oasis Springs. Well, I don't know if many people know this, but the Landgrab name is actually Nancy's name. You know, when they got married, Jeffrey didn't pass over his name to Nancy. No, Jeffrey took Nancy's name and became a Landgrab because her name was much more significant. It had much more meaning because her family, again, old money kind of situation. I was thinking same situation in this house. Now, I was thinking of so many different situations of, all right, well, the wife's family, or like the wife's generations before her, they've got a lot of money. How do they get that? Like, I was trying to figure out how did they get all of this different wealth, and I ended up settling on 2 different ideas, which to be fair they're quite different, but I think it's more fun if they're quite bizarre and they kind of go well together. The first idea that I had was, well, what about if the wife's family originally were the founders of the most popular bank in both the world of Henford and Bagley, which then moved over to the world of Windenburg and the world of like Brinton Bay. Like, the wife's family, they maybe created a bank, or maybe they created some sort of like financial sustainability for consumers, for customers, and they basically ended up branching out and owning the majority of the banks in all the different Sims worlds. Very bizarre, but it's just what came to my mind when I was building this house, and I just thought it was really fun because I've never done anything like that before. And so I was thinking that's one of the reasons why they've got a safe room, because in the safe room, maybe previously before, it held loads of different important documents. It had all the different documentations of all these different banks and all the ins and outs of the business side of things. And so that is why there is this little hidden room within this house. Nowadays, it's just been made into a bit of a library, but I was thinking that's what it originally was once. And then the other idea that I had, which I kind of also brought to fruition within this build, is, well, what about if they've also got some sort of like art collector in the family, or maybe even potential artist? And so you'll notice in this build, and especially in that little like secret library hidden safe room, I end up placing down a lot of fancy paintings. I'm thinking their ancestors, like, I don't know, Da Vinci or something, painted it, They keep it in their house, but they keep it in their safe room, and that is why, another reason, there is a safe room in this house. This part of the storyline of maybe ancestors being in like the painting field kind of worked out really nicely for the greenhouse as well, because I'm thinking the wife, she loves painting. Like, that is what she does in her day to day. Like, I imagine she wakes up, has her cup of tea, has her breakfast, and then goes straight out into the greenhouse and just sits in there all day, watching the scenery, watching the birds, doing a little bit of gardening, but the majority of the time is just painting. And that's why there's so many different like empty canvases for her yet to paint. I just thought that was a lovely idea. I imagine her to also just be a bit of a lady of leisure. You know, she doesn't go to a 9 to 5. She doesn't have an office job. Her family made the stepping stone, so she never has to work a day in her life. I imagine the husband works quite a bit and is quite intimidated by his wife's family background, but I'll speak about that a little bit more later on. Currently, I just want to talk about the kitchen, which I'm currently coming in and decorating. I am so obsessed with this kitchen. I absolutely love it. For the kitchen counters and then also the stove and then the hood as well, I used the Chateau set by Felix Andre. Now, coming into this build, I knew that this was going to be the location for the kitchen, because you might have seen when I was actually at the start of the build, kind of like figuring out the floor plans for all the different rooms, I purposely left it so this room over here where that little tiny baby sink is had no windows on, because originally I was going to put the oven and then the hood top to the oven over there, but then I didn't like the way that the kitchen cabinets were originally clipping in to the oven hood top, and then I thought, okay, well, I want to have something next to the oven hood. One, I placed down some windows. So I placed down some windows, but then as I spun the camera around and I looked at the build from the exterior, it then kind of interfered with some of the stone placements that I placed down, some like little decorational pieces. So I thought, I don't want to disrupt the exterior of this build if I can help it, to place down this really fancy oven. What I'll do is I'll change the location of what I originally thought I was going to have the oven, and just basically plop it onto the other wall, which is exactly what I did. I did delete one window, but from the exterior, to be honest, it looks alright. It doesn't actually look bad. It looks normal that there's no window there, because originally there was 3 windows there. Now there is just 2, and in the middle of them is the oven. But in this room over here, I'm currently just coming in and decorating this little bar cart, which I just thought was a lovely idea, because I'm thinking the butler that lives in this house serves them breakfast every single day, probably serves them lunch, but then when it comes around to dinner time, doesn't serve them dinner, because I imagine that this household, they've got a lot of help. Like, I imagine that they've got personal chefs. I imagine that they've got a butler as well as a maid. They've got gardeners. They've got probably dog walkers. They've got literally any type of help that this family can get. They're going to have it, because they've got so much money. It's literally pennies to them to pay someone a standard working fee. And so I was thinking the little bar cart that I placed down kind of like next to one of the doorways is, yeah, just like a little breakfast cart for the morning when they're having like their cup of tea and their croissants and like their porridge and stuff. But it's actually a bar cart, and your Sims can actually interact with it, and they can make themselves a nice little cocktail if they fancy with that one object. But also in that room, the fridge that I use is from the Coastal Collection by Harry. There is a Chateau fridge by Felix Andre, but I really like the look of the big chunky fridge, and so I decided to opt for that. It comes in very similar swatches, if not the exact same swatches as the oven, so it kind of like pairs really nicely. And then the decorations in that room, the majority of them are from the Chateau set. But one thing that I did want to point out, because you might have noticed it, I placed down 2 landline telephones in the kitchen. I did it on purpose, and I wanted to point out, because you might notice throughout the whole entire decoration of this house, I placed down so many different telephones. You know, like the old fancy, like classic ones with the wire. It's from the Chateau set by Felix Andre, and I placed them down into pretty much every single room. I'm thinking normal standard telephone, maybe call your friends, call your family, just like a regular working telephone. But the second telephone that I placed down in the kitchen was a much more older looking phone, and to me, I was thinking it was an intercom thing, you know, like, you know, sometimes when you watch films and people have like chefs or something, and they have like a separate little intercom section, like their kitchen or in like a certain room that the help would use a lot. I was basically thinking that little phone that I placed down is kind of like off the right hand side of the oven. It's basically the butler's phone when the family just wake up, they want their breakfast, they basically call down to the kitchen and say, all right, get breakfast started. I was thinking it was more like an intercom situation, but it's a small little detail. I just wanted to point it out, because I think if I wouldn't have pointed it out and you did notice that I put 2 phones down, you'll be like, why did you put 2 phones down? They're completely different. I was just thinking one was an intercom because I just thought it would be really fun for gameplay. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I have now moved over into the first interior dining room, and this one is the more fancy situation. So in here, I knew that I wanted this room to be quite extravagant because I feel like a lot of different people that don't live inside of this house will often come into this room. They'll have dinner parties, and I say dinner party, it's not rented out, like the Sims invite them, I say that like it's a rented out space, it's not. I imagine that a lot of different guests come into this room basically on a day-to-day basis, and the family hosts all these different charity balls, or they host all these different dinner events, or just loads of different stuff that makes a lot of different Sims that come into this room. And so I wanted it to be really fancy. I placed down a few different sculptures in here, which I recently went on a little bit of a shopping spree for just sculptures alone, and I downloaded, I think, like 5 or 6 different sculptures of what I believe is real life sculptures that you can find in museums nowadays. To be honest, I think the majority of the sculptures that I did download are meant to be Greek sculptures, but they were just so perfect for this house. Like, I didn't just want to decorate it to look like a chateau on the exterior and then come into the interior and just decorate it like a normal suburban family home. Like, I wanted to get the point across that this house is fancy and the people that live here are quite fancy as well. But also talking a little bit more about the storyline, I'm going to try and do like little bits and pieces when we're like discovering a new room and I'm decorating a certain space to kind of like tie into the storyline that I was imagining. But yeah, like I said, I imagine that this family hosts a lot of different dinner parties, they invite a lot of different guests over, and you see the double doors that kind of go into a separate room. That's what ends up being the home office slash kind of like Scotch whiskey drinking room, because I'm thinking the husband in this house, he doesn't come from as much money as what his wife does, and I imagine that's why he took her name instead of, you know, keeping his own name and transferring it over. I imagine that he still comes from money, but just not the amount of wealth that his partner did, and so it made sense for them to share her last name. But I was thinking he's also in some sort of like banking field as well, but just nowhere on the same sort of like spectrum as what his first family was. He's just in a similar kind of field, similar kind of situation, and when it came round to asking his wife's dad for like her hand in marriage, it was kind of like an easy situation because he's in a similar field of business. I feel like the family that the wife comes from are so prestigious, they have to like approve every single friend that the wife would have made when she was growing up as a teenager, and I imagine it was the same with her boyfriend. She probably had to go through a bit of a application process, if you want to call it that way. This part of the storyline kind of tied in really nicely in my head of the reason why the mum is so into painting, because I imagine throughout her whole entire life she's had to have these standards that she's had to meet. She has to be really strict on who she associates herself with, you know, who she spends her time with, and just overall her general public image, because I imagine that this family, they've got money, but they've also got some sort of level of fame just purely for how much money they've got. They've literally just become somewhat famous from the amount of funds that they've got in their bank account. And so I'm thinking, probably, bless her, growing up, it was probably a lot for her to take in, and that's why she loves painting so much, because she can kind of go into her little own world and she can just paint to heart's content. And I was thinking, it just ties in really nicely with the greenhouse, because she can just go into the greenhouse in the morning and just spend a whole entire day in there, you know, painting and drinking tea and doing a little bit of gardening and stuff. But you can see that I've now moved over into the husband's office. It could just be anyone's office, but I was thinking it was the husband's office, and this is where he spends the majority of his day doing his banking bits and bobs. I don't know about banking, but you know, probably just makes a lot of phone calls and has a lot of fancy business meetings, and I imagine that he probably has a lot of clients come as well into this room. And so opposite the desk I placed down 2 armchairs kind of like facing it, but I was thinking in the daytime he makes phone calls, he replies to emails. I'm saying that like it's a normal 9 to 5 job. I imagine that he also, you know, just goes off to golf if he fancies, like he is kind of his own boss. But I was thinking that he would often have people come into this room more so after dinner time, after they've sat down, they probably had like a 3-course meal been delivered by not even just the butler, but like also the chefs and all the different help that this family employed to help them in their day-to-day lives. But I was thinking after that, they kind of go into this room and they sit down on the armchairs and they have a chit-chat about business, and maybe they want to invest in other different things, and you know, they sit in here and they drink scotch and all that kind of. Hopefully you get the gist that I'm trying to put across to you. But I just thought it was really fun for this room, and I tried to decorate it to be a home office slash whiskey drinking room. And so on the back portion, I placed down these bookcases, which are from the Chateau set, and I tried to just, cluster them, loads of different books, loads of different little knickknacks. And then on the opposite side, I placed down these 2 armchairs. The ones that I've used are from the Domain set by Pierre Sim. And then you see in the corner, I placed down like a little bar cart. Again, I was thinking that's where your Sims would actually make themselves a drink, and it's functional. Your Sims can use that. Currently, I've got it rotated, but in just a second, I'm going to rotate it back around because I wanted to make sure that your Sims could actually interact with it. And also, something to point out, you see the clutter that's on top of that little book. It's not a bookcase, is it? Bar cart. It's because it begins with a B. But you see the clutter that's on top of that bar cart. That is also meant to be a bar. And the clutter itself, that looks like it's got some sort of like champagne, like an ice bucket, that is from the Harlux collection by Felix Andre and Hey Harry. But I have never been able to figure out how to actually place that down to make it usable, because when you put it out of the build and buy category by default, it's just kind of like floating. And I don't know if it's just me, but I've just never figured out what I'm actually meant to put that little bar cart item on top of. Like, I wanted to place it down onto something so it's usable, but I've just never figured out what's the actual right object that it's meant to snap to. And so I more so just place it down onto the bar cart for a clutter, for a bit of decoration, because your Sims can just click on the actual bar cart item themselves, like the wooden frame of it, and that still works. But yeah, I was thinking one of them bottles on it, it's got to be a bottle of scotch or brandy or rum. I don't know what them Sims drink, but it's got to be some sort of like fancy aged beverage that your Sims can drink in that room. Also, I was thinking as well, it might be quite nice if the husband of his household could be working for the firm of his wife's family. So maybe he often has business meetings with the dad in that room. Maybe like the kid's granddad comes over and it's all like fun and games until they go into that room, and then you get serious and they talk business and stuff. But yeah, that is kind of what I was thinking for that little room. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the second dining room space. This one is the more like laid back kind of breakfast room. It's a little bit more casual. Well, I mean, it's as casual as the interior rooms of this house get, but it's just like a nice little room with a circular table in. I ended up placing down some flowers in the centre, and then also placed down some plates, another little toast holder, the same one that I placed outside, and then yeah, some teacups. I think also another newspaper. I think maybe the same objects that I placed down onto the exterior, like breakfast table. Maybe it's just they've got multiple different places. Like I said, if they want to have some lunch, or if they want to have a bit of breakfast, they have got multiple different places that your Sims could sit down and have something to eat. But in here as well, I'm using a lot of new artwork, which I've recently downloaded, which this is one of my favourite new things I've recently downloaded, because something about me, I struggle a lot with when it comes to artwork in this game. Both paid DLC artwork and then also custom content artwork. I just feel like I've never got enough. But recently I've downloaded several pieces from several different creators of this beautiful artwork, and I'm thinking that maybe some of the paintings that are on the walls are things that maybe either the wife has painted, or maybe the wife's ancestor, how I said Da Vinci no, Da Vinci or Picasso or something, I don't know what his name is, but some very famous painter from donkey's years ago, I imagine is the distant relatives or ancestors of the wife's family. Also, I'm very much aware that Picasso and Da Vinci are 2 separate artists. Also, I said Da Vinci because I'm not sure if you're going to get the reference, but there was this TikTok video of these 2 twins, and they said Da Vinci, but they said Da Vinci. I feel like it's very much something that if you've seen the video, you get the reference, but if not, it's just whenever I say Da Vinci, I always just say Da Vinci instead. But either way, as well as that, you just seen in that room, when I was doing it, I decided to add some sort of like family crest onto the hood in the kitchen, because I was thinking family heirloom, maybe the chateau has been in the family for donkey's years, and it was the previous ancestors, and so maybe the family have got some sort of like family crest or something, and they've just displayed it on the hood in the kitchen. I don't know, I just thought it was a really pretty wall decoration, for being completely honest with you, and it kind of like spiced up the hood in the oven. And when I was going into that room and I was trying to find the different paintings to put onto the walls, I saw it and I thought it would just be a perfect fit into the kitchen, and so yeah, I just plonked it onto the hood. Also, the paintings, by the way, going back to that, the paintings that I used in that little breakfast nook room, both the circle ones and then also kind of like the normal rectangular ones, is by Joyce is Fox, and I believe off memory it's from the Forever Autumn collection. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I've now moved over into the lounge room. So in here, I decided to go for the sofa set, which is by Felix Andre. It's part of the Chateau collection. I then also decided to pair it with the same fireplace, again from Chateau, but I just sized the fireplace up ever so slightly because the wall that I wanted the fireplace to be on was just so big, and it was just the fireplace from the Chateau collection is quite small in comparison to how big this space was. So I just ever so slightly sized it up, and then you can see that I'm just coming in and cluttering up the top of the mantelpiece with loads of different books and sculptures and like fancy clocks and candlesticks, and also the painting behind the fireplace is actually a TV. To be honest, when it came around to decorating this room, I was in two mindsets of what I wanted to do with it, because I don't really imagine that this family sit down of an evening and, one, watch a lot of telly, but two, especially watch a lot of telly together. I imagine that the family are maybe a little bit distant from one another, or maybe it's just more so the husband is more distant from his wife and his daughters. I imagine that he's so wrapped up in business world and doing all these businessy bits and bobs that he doesn't really have a spare minute in between speaking to clients, speaking to investors, and speaking to, I don't know, art collectors or something. That I imagine that he doesn't really have that much time to sit down and watch a bit of telly. Like, he doesn't watch Grey's Anatomy on a Friday night or something. He is more so just in his office, maybe drinking scotch with potential clients or something. But I did want to have a TV in this house, more so just for the gameplay purposes of it. And so I thought, well, I have got the living room TV, which is by Felix Andre and Hey Harry. They did a living room set. It is more modern, but the TVs in that CC collection, they're meant to look like paintings, but when you turn them on, they're a normal working TV, which I normally use this CC in the majority of my custom content builds anyway, but especially for this house, like, it was the perfect TV to place down on top of the mantelpiece, because when it's off, it looks like a fancy painting that someone painted, or maybe the wife painted or something. And so yeah, I just plonked it down onto the wall. The rug in this room as well, by the way, you might have seen it in a few different spaces in the house. I think I placed down the same rug in the entrance hallway as well as the formal dining room. I purposely did it in different colours so it doesn't look like the same rug, but it's from the Chateau collection by Felix Andre, and you can currently see that I'm just coming in and cluttering up these sofas with all these different pillows. Now, the pillows that I've used are by Joyce is Fox, and I had a bit of a weird situation when it came around to playtesting this house, because like always, I have playtested this whole entire house thoroughly. Like, I get my Sims to sit on every single seat at the sofa, but I don't get them to sit on the seat and then, you know, they scooch over and move on to the next one. I purposely get my Sims to sit on a seat, get them to stand up, and then go sit on another seat and go back and forth. And it's rooms like this that I'm so happy that I'm that thorough when playtesting, because for some reason, my Sims couldn't sit on either sides of a sofa for the longest time, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Now, what I mean by that, you know, sometimes that when you have like a 3-seater sofa and you click on the sofa and you click on your Sims to sit down, you can either click on the left hand sofa cushion, the right hand one, or the middle one. When I playtest, I get my Sims to, you know, sit on the middle one, get them to stand up, sit on the left hand one, stand up, sit on the right one. Because otherwise, if you just get your Sims to sit in the middle of the sofa and then you click on the left hand cushion, then they'll kind of like scoot their bum over. But that way you don't really get to see if your Sims can actively go and stand in front of that sofa cushion and then sit down. I really hope that makes sense, but basically I just want to be thorough when it comes around to playtesting and sharing my builds. I just want to make sure that you're not going to run into any problems. When I was doing that, initially my Sims could sit on the middle cushion, but then if I wanted them to sit on the left hand side, they would scoot over. But then if I wanted them to stand up again, they would scoot back over to the middle and then stand up. It was very weird and very bizarre. At one point, I thought it was the coffee table in the middle of the room, because when I removed the coffee table, my Sims could sit on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. But then I was like, okay, well, let me replace it with another coffee table. No, it wasn't just this one particular coffee table that was running into this issue. It just seemed to be, basically, to cut a long story short, I ended up having to just rearrange a few different cushions and then it was workable. But I just had a bit of a faff with, that room, because my Sims could sit on the sofa with the cushions, but they would just move, like, scoot the bum over instead of, you know, just going over to it and sitting down. But I just ended up having a little bit of a jig about with the cushions, and now your Sims can sit down on all sides of the sofa from any point in the room. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I have now moved over into another hallway, but this is the hallway which leads into the secret room or the escape room, which also kind of doubles up to be the home library. So in here, I decided to place down a little fireplace onto one of the walls and then cluttered the top of it with loads of different photo frames, a few different like sculptures and like a plant. I also placed quite a fairly fancy painting above the fireplace as well. I'm more so thinking this would probably be something that was passed down through the family, because if you look at the sim in the painting, it looks like that the clothes are quite old fashioned, or maybe like from a different time period, like a different era or something. And so yeah, I'm thinking that maybe that was something that one of the ancestors painted or something. But in that room there is a door which you would have just seen I placed down, and it actually goes into this next room, which is this little like secret library situation. Now at the minute the door to go into this room is open, because the door, which is the hidden bookcase door, there's two different variations of them. We have an open version where it's basically just an archway, or we have a closed version which acts like a normal door which will open and shut. When I was filming, I thought that I wanted to go for this one, which was the archway version. So then in the screenshots you will be able to see this open door going into this room. But then when I was actually playtesting, I just thought for gameplay and for storytelling, it's just so much more fun if it's completely hidden. That way as well, with it being changed to a door version instead of the archway version, your Sims can lock the door. So if your Sims want to, say for example, the wife said, oh, she doesn't want to be around anyone. She wants to come in here. If she wants to, she can lock the door. And she can just sit in here and read books and sit in the little lounger and just, you know, have the best time of her life. With the archway, I don't think you can do that. But yeah, when you change it to be the closed door version, you can do that. But currently, as you can see, I'm just coming in and cluttering up these bookcases with loads of different books and sculptures and plants and photo frames and just random little bits and bobs, loads of random knickknacks. On one of the bookcases, I tried to purposely place down like loads of different files, or what looks like to be some sort of like filing situation. I'm thinking these are well old documents, like historically old documents that contain some very crucial information about the banks that this family have loops to or own in some sort of degree. And so I was thinking that the files were like more fancy, top secret kind of decorational pieces, and that is why they're being kept in this little secret room. But also onto the bookcase I placed down a little record player, so if your Sims want to, they can listen to some music in this room. Also placed down like a little globe as well, and then I end up placing down one of them. Oh, you know them lounge chairs? We originally got introduced to these from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, where your Sims can basically lay down on these like sofa things, like they can lounge like they would outside on like a sun lounger. I thought it would be really nice to place one of them down into this room, and then I also ended up placing down a little telephone. I'm pretty sure also like a little teacup, and then also some letters on the floor as well. I imagine that maybe some top secret letters get kept in this room, or maybe things that have been sent which no one wants anyone else to see is also kept in this room, and some of them are just like scattered about on the floor. I do also end up placing down some artwork, but like more leaning art canvases. You can see at the minute I've placed down I think like 2 different art pieces currently. These ones are a little bit more modern. I mean, don't get me wrong, they still look like they could be, you know, family heirloom paintings and they've been passed down through the generations. But I do end up placing down some more like fancy looking, yeah, paintings and canvases. And then also actually I placed down a little like duffel bag, and then also like a little backpack for, you know, safety room. If it's not safe and you need to exit the room, you're packed, you're good to go. Maybe they've got like spare clothes in there, or maybe they've got, I don't know, like walkie-talkies. I don't know what you'd have in a safe bag or something, but I just thought it would be a nice idea to add it into this room. And so you can see next to the little lounger, yeah, I placed down a little duffel bag and then also a backpack. But currently, as you can see, I'm just basically going around this room and finishing it off by adding in some final pieces of artwork. The ones that I added onto the walls, again, they look like they're a little bit older. They look like they've been passed down through this family. It's more so the frames that the artwork are in, because the frames look a little bit more antique-y to me anyway. But I also decided to change the lighting in that room to make it ever so slightly darker than the rest of the house. And you want to notice as well, I decided to go for dark brown bookcases in that room, as well as a darker wallpaper, just because secret, to me, if something's secret, if I wanted to have a secret room in my house, I wouldn't paint it like bright blue or yellow. I'd paint it like, well, I wouldn't have a secret room in my house to start off with, but I would paint it a darker colour, you know, to match with the theme of like secret. So yeah, I decided to make it a little bit darker in that room. But anyway, moving on, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs level. I'm currently just coming in and decorating this grand upstairs hallway. Now, surprisingly, even though I've been collecting custom content and mods for literally years at this point, like my CC collection is a lot of gigabytes, I don't have that many big side tables to put into like fancy stairways situations like this. And so them 2 little side tables that you can see up here, they're actually chest drawers, but I feel like you can pass these off to be side tables. I just went in and then just kind of ever so vaguely cluttered them up. I didn't want them to be like filled with loads of different clutter pieces, loads of different sculptures, but I placed down two of the same flower decoration. It's kind of like this blossom in this really pretty vase. I believe it's from the Gatsby collection by Felix Andre. I then placed down matching side lamps on either table, and then I think I placed down a few different sculptures, maybe like a vase or something. You know, something to nice look at when you walk up the stairs, but not clutter central, if you get what I mean. But over here, as you can see, I am just currently fiddling about with this separate frame and painting. Now, the frame itself, I've had in my game for quite some time now, and these are things that you can actually put your Sims' own personal photos inside of them. Now, I am someone that takes a lot of photos in gameplay of my household, of the household pets, of just random stuff when my Sims meet their mates. Like, I'm someone that takes a lot of photos in my gameplay, and it's something that really annoyed me for the longest time is when you would take a photo and then you'd pop it onto the wall and it would have that really ugly default photo frame. I just hated it. But them photo frames, or that photo frame that I just placed down onto the wall, is actually something that replaces the photo frame in game, so you can kind of like customize the different frames that your Sims photographs will go in. But I basically placed down that the frame it separately to the painting, and then the painting is from, I believe, Lily's Palace or Lily's Place, and it's under the category called landscape paintings. And I just found a really pretty painting and just plopped it onto the wall, and yeah, that was basically the entrance hallway. Now, as you can see, I've moved over into the first bedroom in this house, which is the butler's bedroom. Now, I imagine that this family, they've got a living butler, they've got so much money. I imagine that this butler is probably like an older gentleman and maybe has been with this family for quite some time, and maybe potentially could have been the butler for the wife when she was growing up, when she was a little girl. So to her, the butler's kind of like not a father figure in a sense of she still, you know, has a good relationship with her dad, but her butler kind of like was there when she had these all like monumental things happen to her in her life. Probably taught her how to ride a bike, or probably taught her how to sing or how to paint, or, you know, just something like that. I imagine this butler probably helped the wife do when she was a little girl, and she's just kind of kept him in the family, and he now lives here with her family and is helped raising her children. I just thought it was a really lovely idea, and so yes, wanted to decorate their room to be quite butler generic, if that's even a thing. Like, I didn't want there to be too many personalised decorations, but I still wanted it to feel somewhat like a nicely decorated bedroom. I placed down some photo frames in that room, also placed down some little like suitcases and stuff, and then also a little wardrobe. But now, as you can see, I've now moved over into the second bedroom, which is the little girl's bedroom. So in here, I decided to go for this new wallpaper that I've recently downloaded. I believe off memory it's by Joyce is Fox, I think anyway, but it's just so beautiful. It's so dainty. It's this like white panelling, but then in between the panelling we've got this beautiful like wallpaper almost, and it's all these little tiny dainty flowers. There is also different versions of this wallpaper as well, I'm pretty sure, where it's like 2 columns of panels, or like you can basically have the wallpaper without the panels as well, I think. But I've just been desperate to use this wallpaper in a build somewhere, and it was just so perfect for this bedroom. In here I decided to use the same curtains that I've used throughout the rest of the house, which are from the Chateau collection, but I used them in a pink swatch because I wanted to decorate this bedroom to be more so like a pinky colour theme. Now, for the idea that I had for the kid that would sleep in this bedroom, I imagine that she is definitely her mother's child, and what I mean by that, this little girl loves painting. You'll see in a second I end up making kind of like a painting corner in the edge of her room, where I placed down loads of different paintbrushes, I placed down loads of different sketches and drawings on the floor, and I could just picture her laying on the floor, like with her feet dangling kind of like in the air, you know, like when you lay on the floor with your belly on the floor and you have your feet up. I imagine she lays there and she draws these different paintings, and she's just absolutely obsessed with art, and it makes perfect sense because she is her mother's child. Her mum is a bit of an artist, and so I also end up placing down the little drawing table in here as well, so your Sims can actually draw in this room. Also end up placing down the teddy bear in the corner, which is by the Tiny Travellers set by Felix Andre and Hey Harry. It's like a normal working teddy bear, it just looks like a zebra. I then also placed down like a little toy box, and then in terms of the furniture in this room, the bed is from the Florence set by Felix Andre, and then both the chest of drawers, the desk, and then also the bedside table are from a collaboration pack called Fairylicious by the Clutter Cat and Felix Andre. Now, for this little girl, I really liked the idea of her being a little bit more introverted. I imagine that she spends a lot of time in her bedroom. There is no real like kids toys outside of her bedroom, but I feel like for this kind of house, and especially for this family, with the amount of people that they probably coming in and out, it'll be a bit weird if the kid has their toys like downstairs scattered about in the living room or something. And so I was thinking that the personality for this little girl is, yeah, she's quite introverted. She likes to keep herself to herself. She just loves drawing. You can see in the corner over here, I just placed down them paintbrushes and some like art decoration things. It looks like she's been drawing or something. But I was thinking that, yeah, she doesn't really have that many friends. I was also thinking of the idea of potentially her and her older sister both being homeschooled, which I'm still on the search. If you know one, please let me know. But I'm on the search for a homeschool mod. There was one that I had in my game forever ago, and I think it got like outdated or something. And so if anyone knows of any up-to-date homeschooling mods where kids can just go to school from like the computer or something, please let me know, because I just envisioned that, yeah, the little girl and her older sister are both homeschooled. The older sister is much more extroverted and she has quite a big social circle. I also do have like a complete separate storyline for the older sister, which I've just moved on into her bedroom. But yeah, that was what I was thinking for the little girl. But in here, as you can see, this is now the teenager's bedroom, and this teenager, not only do they have an ensuite, but they also have a massive walk-in wardrobe. I feel like it wouldn't be a custom content build of mine if I didn't include some sort of walk-in wardrobe situation. Now, the storyline that I've got for the teenager is very different to her younger sister, but I was kind of going off a bit of a Romeo and Juliet kind of storyline for this teenager, because I'm thinking this teenager, she's got a partner, and this partner is not approved by her family. I imagine her mum, very supportive, very lovely lady, but I imagine her dad is probably not so fussed and not so happy about her new partner. And so I was thinking that oftentimes she meets her partner, but they have to like sneak into the house, or like they have to, maybe like the partner has to climb up the upstairs balcony columns, because on the outside, you know where we've got like the balcony area, I placed down some columns. Maybe the partner has to climb up them to get into the upstairs level of the house, because they can't walk through the front door. Like, they're not approved by the family. Well, they are, just not the dad. I imagine that the mum is very much like, do what you want kind of thing. But yeah, I love the idea of this teenager just being so wrapped up in love. And you can see in this room, I placed down a few different decorations to kind of show that. I recently downloaded a CC pack by Cibulet called Love is in the Air, and there's loads of different like Polaroid pictures of Sims that look like they're in some sort of relationship. There is loads of different like little different clutter pieces from this Love is in the Air set, and I placed them down into this bedroom. Also decided to place down a little tiny cuddly toy in between her pillows. I imagine that's something that her partner gave her, and you know, it's probably like a Jellycat. If it, you know, like, do you know Jellycat? I love a Jellycat. I've got a lemon, a cauliflower, and an octopus. I want to get more, but my boyfriend tells me I've got too many on my bed and it's hard to go to sleep. But anyway, besides the point, I love Jellycats. I was thinking that this sim that sleeps in this room also loves Jellycats, and maybe that is something that her partner bought for her, and where she can't see them all the time, she kind of like cuddles it when she goes to sleep or something. I just thought it was the loveliest idea. The cuddly toy, by the way, is a piece of custom content, and it is by Nolan Sims, and it's some sort of like little dinosaur. It comes in so many different colours, but it's actually something that your Sims can interact with if they're a kid or like a toddler. Like, they can play with it like they would a normal toy out of a toy box. But either way, over here, as you can see, I'm just cluttering up her desk. You can see that I've placed down some photo frames that look like two Sims maybe having like some sort of like intimate moment or something. And then behind the computer desk as well, there's loads of different Polaroid pictures in like a black and white swatch. They do also come in a coloured swatch, but I like the black and white swatch because it looks a little bit more put together. It kind of like goes with the rest of the room a little bit more. Again, like I said, they're from the Love is in the Air set by Cibulet. And then also in this room, there ends up being a little makeup vanity. I'd really struggled with trying to figure out the placement of both the computer desk and then also the makeup vanity, because I didn't want it to be like chair central. Like, I didn't want there to be a computer desk chair and then also a dressing table chair like right next to each other. And so I end up placing down a bookcase in between them, just cluttered that up with loads of different books and plants and like little random boxes and random bits and bobs. And then also I placed down some empty photo frames as well onto her computer desk. It's the same kind of photo frames that I placed down, you know, in like the upstairs hallway where I have that big one. It's the same kind of like thing, a same kind of like idea. Your Sims can actually place down their photos into their photo frames. And I think if you actually do want to play along with this family, with this storyline, and you actually want to follow along with this kind of like Romeo and Juliet situation, it might be really nice for your Sims to, yeah, take some photos of them and their partner and pop them into them little photo frames. But either way, moving on, you can see that I've now moved over into her dressing room. Now, I do just want to mention as well, by the way, you're probably thinking, hang on, we're like an hour into this video, you haven't shown me a single bathroom. You're going to see the bathrooms next. Basically, the way that the floor plan worked out for this house, every single bedroom has its own ensuite bathroom, and then there is an extra 2 bathrooms downstairs, like guests to use when the family hosts parties or something, or maybe like the maid needs to go to the toilet, she needs away or something. There is 2 extra bathrooms downstairs, but normally whenever I do my speed builds, I only ever show the furnishing for 1 bathroom because they're too repetitive. But then normally that 1 bathroom will be like the main bathroom upstairs. But just the way the floor plan worked out, the biggest bathroom ends up being the one in the parents' bedroom, or like the master suite of the house. And so don't worry, you are going to see a bathroom. It is coming up next. It's very fancy in there. End up having a fireplace, and then there's like a bathtub in front of the fireplace. It's very picturesque, but currently I'm just coming in and placing down like loads of different shoe clutter into these like modular wardrobe pieces. The ones that I've used are from the Lavish collection by Charlie Pancakes. That is where the wardrobe is from. And then the majority of the shoes in the wardrobe as well are from Charlie Pancakes, and then I use a few different pieces of shoe clutter from, I believe, Ravishing off memory, and then I also think maybe 1 or 2 other creators. The same goes for the clothes in the actual wardrobe. The majority of them are from the Lavish set by Charlie Pancakes, but then I think I use a few different tops from, Ravishing as well. Also as well, quickly, I've just remembered, you see in the wardrobe, I placed down a few different, more like shirt looking things. I was thinking that is this daughter's partner's clothes, but there's only like 1 or 2 pieces of clothing that looks a little bit more masculine. I was personally thinking she would have a boyfriend, she could have a girlfriend, but I purposely placed down some clothes that doesn't look to be hers, because I was thinking that maybe when her partner does come over and stay, that maybe he keeps a few different clothes here, and it's kind of like tucked away in like a little secret nook in the wardrobe. Like if you was to walk into the wardrobe, it wouldn't be the first thing that you can see, but they are hanging in there. But also on the shelves in the wardrobe, I spent some time trying to figure out what to actually clutter the shelves up with. I ended up placing down a few different wicker baskets, a few different shoe boxes, also a couple of different suitcases, and then some piles of jumpers, and then also trousers. There is also a purposely left blank space in between the middle shelf where what I imagine to be high heels would be. I don't know if you can see that, but I basically have a pair of shoes that look like they belong on that shelf, but they look like they've just been taken off and they've just been like plonked in front of the floor. And then in the wardrobe to the side of that, you can see I've got like more fancy formal dresses. I imagine that when this family has all these different extravagant parties and they invite all these different fancy people around, that maybe both daughters are requested to dress quite elegantly, and they have to wear particular things to kind of like keep up this particular image or something. And so in one of the wardrobe sections, I tried to make it look like a fancy dressing situation, like fancy dresses that you'd wear to like balls and like ball gowns and stuff like that. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I've now moved over into the bathroom. So in here, I end up having a fireplace in the wall, and I end up using a fireplace that doesn't actually have a fire, but it's more so candles. The one that I've used is by Felix Andre. Now, I purposely did this because I knew that I wanted to have the look of having a bathtub bang on in front of the fireplace, but then the way that The Sims work, The Sims is a bit funny sometimes, and sometimes you can't light a fireplace if certain objects is in front of it. And so to just kind of battle that, I thought, well, I've got this really nice fireplace that it's still a fireplace, but instead of a fire, it's candles. The candles do have fire on them, so it's technically the same kind of situation. And that way, with playtesting and gameplay functionality, it completely works. Your Sims can use the bathtub, they can use the toilet, you can use the sink, but then you still have the effect of your Sims laying in a bathtub of an evening, having a glass of wine, reading a book, and But in here as well, I decided to go for the sink, which is by Charlie Pancakes from the Soap collection. I feel like in every single CC build that I do, I always use this sink, but it's just so nice. And I feel like in The Sims 4, in the actual paid DLC content, we need more sinks like this, because it's actually a double sink, but it's only a single sink, if you get what I mean. Like, it's 2 tiles big, but it's like a one single object instead of it being multiple different sinks. In the game currently, if you want to have something like this, you'd normally have to use kitchen counters and try and manipulate it that way. But I really wish we had some sort of sink that was like double in length like this one, because like I said, whenever I do a CC build, I always use this sink. But also in this bathroom, end up placing a sculpture in the corner. Kind of fits. And then on top of the fireplace, I then also decided to place this really fancy mirror. which that is by Felix Andre, and I cannot for the life of me remember which collection it's from. What I'll do is I'll find it and I'll put it on the screen now for you. But that was the bathroom. Now moving over onto the last room in this house, which is the parents' bedroom. So in here, I decided to go for the bed that we got from the Colonial collection by Felix Andre. I then decided to pair it with the bedding, because the bed and the bed frame are separate, but the bedding is from the Chateau collection, and then this really beautiful canopy. It's Canopy Saint Louis. I don't know. The curtains are around it. That is from the Florence collection by Felix Andre. I knew coming into this room that I needed to have a really grand, fancy bed because it just matches with the rest of the house. And then also in this room, there ends up being a little balcony, as you can see. I purposely placed the bed bang on in front of the window so your Sims of a morning they can wake up. I was about to say they can open the curtains, but they'll probably get the butler to do it. But your Sims can open the curtains and then go out onto the balcony and maybe drink a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something, and yeah, just have like a really nice slow morning. But in here I decided to use both a wardrobe and chest of drawers from the Chateau collection. That mirror on the wall as well, I believe, is from the same collection. And then I also decided to plop 2 plants either side of it. And then other than that, I think I end up adding an ottoman at the end of the bed, or I think I've actually already added an ottoman at the end of the bed, which again is from the Chateau collection. And then yeah, I'm just going to go around the build, finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and especially if you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you so much. And as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.